Hey there, everyone. This is Mystic Fish, and welcome to episode 24 of our Factorio series, where we are building a cellular megabase. Last episode, we got our science cell up and running here and sciencing away, which is very exciting. And I am also happy to report that with the addition of solar cells 39 and 40, we are finally out of our power debt, and we're able to run continuously without incurring our low power alarms here. So that is good news. However, one of the things that I noticed while I was trying to add solar cells to get to this point was that it really seemed like there was a big draw on the builder portion of the solar cell was actually a sort of a really counteracted the positive power production effect of the solar portion while it was actively building stuff. And so I think I want to try to address that in this episode. We're going to need a lot more solar cells just in the course of working through scaling up and adding more science cells. I mean, we need this many just for one science cell, plus the supporting mining and so on. And wow, this iron is almost out. And actually that one's almost out. So, all right, we have some expanding we're going to need to do. Fortunately, we are working on mining productivity. And hopefully we can get to the point of, maybe I need to go set up a mining outpost just in the background at some point. But for right now, let's take a look at our solar cells. So I'm going to meet you over in the lab. Okay, first I want to check some of our hypotheses about the existing solar cell here. So let's get this stamped down. Let's get this connected here. And then the first thing I'm curious about is what is the passive power draw of this cell? And so I'm going to let's just get rid of all the solar panels in accumulators down here. And then we can come up here and take a look at this. So, so we can see what that's consumption. I think we have to wait for this to scroll off here. We can look at it here. Okay, well actually we can see it right here. It is 2.9 megawatts. So even though we have 27 or so megawatts being produced from the solar portion, we're losing 3 of it right off the bat, which is almost 11%. So that doesn't seem great. And so I also want to check what the power draw is while this is actively building stuff. So let me go get that queued up, and then we'll be back and we'll take a look at that. Okay, here is the same builder portion of the solar cell, but with sort of all the bots up and running and everything primed. And if we come and take a look at the power consumption here, we see that we're fluctuating between, anywhere between 20 and up to 46, but maybe let's see if there's a longer term average here of 31 megawatts. And so that actually what we had suspected is in fact true, that while this is actively building, it is a net negative on power to the base. So that is not really what we're looking for here. So I think we need to do a redesign here. Okay, we need to redesign this then. So I've got our solar cell blueprint. I've taken all of the solar panels and accumulators out so that we can check on the power draw of whatever we design here. And I've hollowed out most of what's in here because I think this is what we're going to be revisiting. So if we are going to do things without so many logistics spots, I think that means that we're going to have to use belts. Now, there's no belts on the builder train, so we'll have to figure out a way to build them internally. And in particular, that means that eventually we're going to have to offload stuff from the ore trains onto belts. There's not a ton of room in here, but I think what we can do is we can shrink things down to maybe one yellow belt total. That's a slow trickle of ore, but I think we can do some low power stuff there. So let's do a little bit of math. What I've done is I've set up a new factory plan here called the Solar Bill of Materials. And so I've taken everything that's on the current bill of materials, and I've just created an entry for it up in here. In theory, this says we would exactly fill a one builder train in 1 minute, which results in insane numbers of 141,000 ore per minute. So these are sort of pretty ridiculous rates here. I set up the preferences so that we can use assembly machine 1s wherever possible, because they are just cheaper energy-wise. So that will help us out here. Now, the main reason to do this is really just to get to the ratios. What I want to do is I just want to calculate a few things, which is, let's see how much ore is in here. So 33.79 for the stone, 141, 649 for the iron, 61,746 for the copper, and 37.32 for the ore, or for the coal. So that's a total rate of 210,506. Okay, now one yellow belt can do 900 items per minute. So we need to remember that. And so now the things that I wanted to just check a couple of things. So like, for example, let's check refineries. So the number of refineries, if we scale this down, would be 152 times 900 divided by 210,506. And so that says we need one refinery. So one refinery is actually going to be enough for us. So that's good to know. Let's check on the smelting, because that's the other thing that I'm a little curious about. So we know anything that has 152 or less is less than one thing, but this says, all right, let's look at copper. So that is 1646 times 900 divided by 210,506 is a little more than 7. So maybe we'll call that 8 steel furnaces making copper plates. This is going to be, 34.7 is less than 152, so we only need one steel furnace making stone bricks. Let's check steel. Steel is going to be 1901 times 900 divided by 210,506, and that's going to be, we'll round this down to 8. Smelting columns like to have, it's easier to have even numbers of things. So we'll just call that 8, and we'll be a little short on steel. And that'll just be, I guess, how it works. And then finally, let's take a look at the iron smelting. So we need 3,777 times 900 divided by 210,506. So let's call that 16. Okay, so we're going to set this up with belts and 16 steel furnaces making iron plates, 8 making copper, 8 making steel, 8 making copper, 1 refinery, and we will figure out how to bring all of the ore in at an aggregate rate of 900 ore per second. And so we'll see how this is all going to work. We're only going to use logistics bots. We'll have to use logistics bots to bootstrap it in the beginning, right? Because we won't have any belts. We'll have to make them here. So whatever makes belts, wherever we decide to put that, is going to have to be fed by logistics bots. But once it builds all the belts, then that stuff can just stop. And we'll use logistics bots to sort of pull things as we produce them up to here, but that should be a pretty low rate of item transport. I think we just figured out that we don't need the coal liquefaction. I think that's what we just figured out. So we can take this out too. Okay, good. Great. Okay, so I think for something like this, just in the interest of having sort of a reasonable length episode here, and because people seem to like the way that this worked when we went over the science cell, I'm going to go do the design, and then I'll come back when I'm done, and I'll walk you through everything that we designed. So stay tuned. Okay, we are back. This episode has been challenging to produce. We're a little out of order here. I realized that I did not, when I was putting the video together, I did not actually record this segment of the video. So I'm going to go back and revise it. But what that means is that what you're seeing here is the final version as a result of doing some in-game testing. And so you get the benefit of hearing how the whole thing works. Okay, so let's start with the resource drop-off here. We've replaced all of the active provider chests with passive providers because we do not want logistics bots ferrying stuff around out of here. And instead, we're dumping things onto a two-sided belt here to be put together onto a single belt. Now, there's some circuit network trickery here. Not really trickery, but to get even unloading, what we've done is we have a wire attached to all of the chests here. And those come in here. We have 60 total chests that we're unloading from the train, and so we calculate the average amount that should be in each chest if it was evenly unloaded, and then we make it negative. And so then that average amount is passed down on the green wire among all of the unloading inserters that go onto the belt. Then for each one of those, we have a red wire that comes just from this chest to this inserter, and so and that will have a positive amount of whatever is in it. And so we have set the enable disable here to say if you have anything, if you have any type of ore which is greater than 0, which means that the amount of ore in your chest is greater than the average, right? Because they'll basically, whatever's in here will subtract off the average. And if I have a positive number left over, then that means that I have more than the target amount in here. And so then I should unload. If I have less than the target amount, then this will be a negative number and I should wait and let somebody else go. And so that should help us with even unloading so that we always have room to unload trains when they come in. And so that the trains generally stay here as low as possible. We want all of these train unloading inserters to be able to operate at all times. There's a little bit of the train car in the middle is a little slower because in order to get this belt sort of through here, I had to remove some 3 sets of chests here, but I was able to get 2 in on the other side, and so we have 5 instead of 6. And as you'll see in practice, it tends to work out okay. Okay, then what we end up with is a mixed belt of ore coming in here, and so this is a filter system set up to just sort everything into stone and copper and iron and coal, and these are all set up so that even if I have a full belt of any one of these materials, I can unload it, and so that way this belt can be generally as full as possible, and we can pull things out of the train area as well as possible. And our factory plan is set up to go for sort of like one full yellow belt, so that should help us smooth out the edges. Right, but before this gets in, right, because these are belts, and so they're not here on the builder train, and so that's why these are logistics chests over here. Because we actually don't have like steel chests like in any great quantity, and so these were what were sort of available to us from our bill of materials, and it's convenient because we have to build all of the belts here, and so this little setup here is driven by logistics bots, and it just produces yellow belt stuff here. And these are restricted so that I only have one, or actually it ends up being two for the belts, right? Because I get two, and then I can move for each recipe, and then I move them both in. And so this eventually, once all the belts are built, these get full, and this all backs up, and then we stop using logistics bots to feed stuff, and instead we derive stuff from the belt part of the base. For each type of ore, we have a series of 8 chests which act as a buffer, and that's because each chest has 48 slots. A train car, if we can get one in there, has 40 slots, and so that means we can hold more than one train load of buffered ore in here, and so that way we have some stuff to work off while we're waiting for other trains to come in. Let's see, what else is there to talk about here? Generally speaking, coal comes in over here, and then it makes its way. What does this guy do? I don't know what this guy does. Oh, I know. That was originally for trying to burn wood out of here. Okay, we'll clean that up. And in fact, yes. Okay, so then I don't need that. And so then, actually, I don't need input priority anymore. So the coal will come in here, and it splits. Some of it goes into smelting, and some of it goes down here. That's to make sure that we have some fuel available for smelting, but eventually we produce solid fuel down here. We simplified our oil processing just so that we could free up some combinators for use in other places, and so we just got something simple here, which says. Again, we're shooting between 1,000 and 5,000 of each product, so I'm just going to start by controlling heavy oil here. So if I'm short on heavy oil, then we'll actually do some processing. If I am short on light oil, then we'll crack heavy oil into it. And if we are short on, no, that's not it, this one. If we're short on petroleum gas, then we'll crack light oil. And then if we have too much petroleum gas, we'll turn it into solid fuel. And this is enough to actually, because most of what's in here, most of what gets consumed here is petroleum gas. Once it's up and running, then this actually works out just fine. We don't really need very much oil products in general. But anyway, we have a preference for using the solid fuel here because it's locally produced. And it involves far fewer train loads to come in to do enough solid fuel to keep the smelting running than the equivalent amount of coal. So we have our, as we worked out, we've got our iron smelting here that feeds into steel. This is the copper, and here's our single furnace for making stone bricks. These are all just sort of packed in here. You'll notice that the first row of the iron smelters and the first row of the copper smelters are built with, as well as the fuel for them, are built with stack inserters because that's what we have on here. But then for the rest of it, we want to use cheaper yellow inserters because they're able to keep up and they have a lower power draw. So if we hover over one of these, we can see min consumption 400 watts. Min consumption for a stack inserter is 1 kilowatt. So the yellow inserters are much cheaper electricity wise. Let's see, what else is there to talk about? Then down here, in order to continue the bootstrapping, we have gears. We had to do a little interesting spaghetti here because we don't have enough red inserters on the train. We only have enough red inserters basically for this stuff, and so we can't control which red inserters the construction bots will build. So we need to be able to know that we can build red inserters without requiring red inserters. And we also need gears and electric circuits to make the yellow inserters, which are down here. So these are built with stack inserters and assembly machine 2s because those are on the train, whereas the assembly machine ones are, again, much cheaper electricity-wise. And so, so we have some initial green circuit stuff and gears set up up at the front, and then we have some additional ones that will sort of get built after the fact to produce enough green circuits for our use. Let's see, most of this is basically building a mall. I guess the main things to point out are that we have to make the electric engine manufacturing an assembly machine 2, and we have to make the rocket fuel that we use for the trains, also assembly machine 2s because they have fluid inputs, but everything else can be assembly machine 1s. Now, in order to prioritize construction, and my first time through, I ran into this first time trying to test this out in the real world here. I wanted to build these things in order because what I found was that eventually, once we started building some of the rest of this stuff, these assemblers would start stealing resources before we had finished making all of the missing ghost items for the cell. And so I've just set up some stuff to help with that. So initially, we're going to prioritize yellow inserters. And so I have a separate output chest here where we can watch for how many that we have built up here. And so next we build the red inserters, but this output inserter here will only start feeding yellow inserters into red inserters once we've got a backlog here. And then similarly, the output inserter to the blue inserters does not start working until we've got a backlog of red inserters. And then we don't feed the stack inserters, the blue inserters, until we've actually built assembly machine 1s. And so these are, for example, we don't start building assembly machine 1s until we've got a backlog of red inserters. And we don't feed them to the assembly machine 2s unless we've got a backlog. But generally, once we've got a backlog of the assembly machine 1s, then we should be fully constructed at that point. And so these belts are cut off, so they don't operate until we have a backlog of assembly machine 1s, which means that, for example, initially, with only 2 furnaces smelting, the gears eat all of the iron. And so we have to wait, and I mean, that works, but we have to wait for the gears to stack all the way up back down to here before iron gets to green circuits. And so just by cutting these off here, it just reduces how much stacking up we have to do. And it's the same logic here for copper and steel. And in fact, we've got it over here we don't even bother feeding iron into the steel at all until we have finished construction. The final step to talk about here is that we look for a backlog of red inserters in the logistics network before we start requesting them up here. And so that prevents red inserters from getting put up here and put on the train before a construction bot can get to them. Okay, last thing to talk about is I have revamped the train delivery system. So parts of this are very similar. This is still calculating demand, but I have adjusted the demands here so that basically we have set up the target here of 19,200 ore is how much we can store in these buffers here. So we've shot for lower total on-hand amounts. And then similarly, the fluids are set up so that it's basically a sort of, instead of 2 tanks, it's a tank and a half. And so the net result of this is that the number of trains I want in is never greater than 1 for any of these. The priority demand system still works the same way, but now we've changed the way that the stations work. So now the enabled condition is that, hey, we're ready for logistics bots. So everything starts disabled, but then once we're finished construction and the logistics bots kick in, then they become enabled. and then they stay enabled from there on out. However, we then manipulate the train limit as a way to control which train is coming in. Because these demands are only coming in as 0 or 1, we use that. We just directly stick that into the train network, and so which we can see here. And so we've got the demands in the green wire for all the resources, and so we can see that here that we've got a train limit of 1 because this is the highest priority item and I need water. We use the calculation on demand to suppress the lower priority items. So in particular, we can see the input to this guy here does have an oil because we need oil. But because the demand includes water, right? When we put water on, that counts as a 32 on demand. And so if we do the integer division of 32, if there's a demand for water, this will be 1, or at least 1. But because we make it negative, that takes the limits away. And so all the rest of these, while we need water, have a train limit of 0 on them. And then the last thing that we do is for each one, we also stick a combinator that says if there's a train in here, also take a 1 away. And so so that way we can manage ourselves through trains coming in and out. Okay, that is it. That is what we ended up building. So let's go to the real world, although we're going sort of back in time because what we're going to stamp down is an earlier version of what I just walked you through, but you'll be able to get the general idea of it, and so I'll meet you over there. Okay, here we are back in the real world. We have our stem cell ready to go, and let's plug this thing in and see if it's able to bootstrap itself. So stay tuned. Okay, it looks like we're pretty close to construction being done. One thing I did not expect was the construction bots filled in a bunch of the red inserters here. I was thinking they would do these, but there's no particular reason they would do these first. But that's actually okay because we don't really need to be loading stuff onto the train anyway until we can start to build stuff. We can see our little belt bootstrap is there. We are out of iron. Okay, we need to go there and do something about that. So let me do something about that, and we'll be right back. Okay, the logistics bots are loose, which is exciting, and so we should be getting hopefully some trains in here shortly, but we need to get you going. Thank you. And where's that loudspeaker at? It's right here. Good. Guess we don't have any other storage places for that to go anyway. Although, what's in here? Oh, just coal and stone. So actually, that's fine. They can go into... that storage box up there. Okay, that's fine. And that's a fine place for those to go. So, let's see. The logistics bots were released. But it seems like we didn't get the signal everywhere we wanted it to be. So let's see. First, we're low on iron, so I'm just going to turn that guy off for a second. And then let's go, we'll go back up and we'll investigate what exactly is going on with our lack of trains coming in. Okay, let's see what's going on here. I suspect what's going on here is we've got our logistics bots in here. Yes, yes, yes. Aha, no logistics bot signal there, because we need to go from here up to here, which it does not reach to. Do I want to put it there? No, this also has red wires attached to it. Can I go from here to here? No. All right, let's just do it the easy way. Let's just stick another substation in here. We'll go from here to here. Okay, that enabled all of our stations. We got one train coming in there. We had a race condition. Yeah, we got one train coming in almost everywhere. All right, let's see what happens here on the unloading. So these are all unloading as we expected. How fast will these unload? Okay, that's pretty fast. Yeah, and each of these only has 400 in it. Okay, so we should only get 4 total train loads of ore into here. We should no longer be needing coal, so that's good. All right, we just got the water in. Now your limit is 0. Everybody else seems to be queued up here. All right, that's oil in. Here's the stone. We did get the coal into these. I guess all we are waiting for, what else are we waiting for? Copper and iron. Here comes the copper. We should be able to start making this copper right here. Good. This is the first part of the bootstrap. How full are these things? Still not very full, that's okay. And are we getting an iron train in is the question. We've got a demand for 4 iron and a supply of 3. So we need another iron outpost here in a minute, which I may go do while we are... let's see, which guy's the iron guy? This guy. These are all waiting to... wow, is all of our iron out? All of our iron is like out. There's just a tiny bit left there and a tiny bit left there. Okay, I guess we got, which one should we tap? This is a nice big one, so I guess I'll go get that one next, which I'm gonna have to do in order to finish doing this. All right, so we'll do that off camera, and we'll revisit this once we get some iron in here. Okay, managed to get a new iron outpost set up down here, and got an iron train into here. I intercepted it and made sure it came up here instead of going to the science cell, which I think is technically closer to the mine, but I wanted to see this going. So now we're producing iron, which is good stuff. We have placed some splitters and some undergrounds. All the belts are going into the undergrounds and splitters, so I guess we will build all of those first and then fill in the belts. And so that's going to take us a little bit of time, so we will check back in once that is done. Okay, we have completed the undergrounds and splitters. So that is good stuff. And now we're working on, obviously, we're beginning to fill in the belts. Some of the train offload is beginning to happen as we fill in the belts over here. I guess the next thing that we're looking for is building enough belts that we can start smelting. So that's going to be a little bit before we get there. So stay tuned. Okay, we have our first copper and iron smelting going. We are almost done with the belts, I think. Maybe we are done with the belts. Yep, we're done with belts. Okay, so now it's just a matter of pulling this backlog of stuff out. We're starting to sort it over here. And let's see, I think the next thing we're looking for are, we got gears being made. That's good stuff. We've made copper cables, so that's good. So we're just waiting for enough iron to get through here that, let's see, I guess what's going to happen, right, we're going to make enough gears and those have to get, kind of pretty far down the road. I guess we should see the yellow inserters grabbing the gears once they get up here. Which, who's grabbing them instead? Oh, no, here's one. Oh, right. I think I didn't mention that in the little tour, but the assembling machine 1 creating machine is an assembling machine 2 because we can get it from the builder train, and but interestingly enough, the thing that will make assembly machine 2s will be an assembly machine 1, but most of this stuff is assembly machine 1, so we'll have to wait for that to get through. All right, this is gonna take a while to spin up. We are successfully making solid fuel, so that's good stuff. Actually, almost, we really have, oh yeah. It looks like we'll be able, we really have solid fuel going for the smelting really right from the get-go. So that is good stuff. Obviously, we'll consume more of that as we are able to make the other inserters. So I will be back when there's something else interesting to report here, but I think this is working, and I think as long as we see yellow and red inserters in assembly machine 1s getting created, then I think the rest of the bootstrap should work, which is pretty exciting. So I'm also a little curious to see how long it will take us to clear out this backlog of stuff up here. So, but here you can see it in action. We can see that, for example, even though there's stuff in these inserters are not active because that gives the ones a little closer to the center a chance to get their stuff on, and so our sort of balancing stuff is working here. So this should go in waves. So as these later ones are able to bring some of their excess down to where we're looking for, these averages should decrease over time. We should be building up the buffers here. We got buffers of iron and stone and copper going, which is good stuff. And so really, I guess we're just waiting for the coal to get in here. Although we're not really missing the coal at the moment because we've got the solid fuel. So it's okay for that to get going, and it's really just a matter of finishing the bootstrap on manufacturing. So we'll watch for that, and hopefully I'll be able to visit you with that having succeeded, and we can wrap up this episode. Okay, well, that basically worked. I did end up making a few tweaks, which this was the first one we stamped out, and I've done two more as I was just sort of exploring, fixing things up a little bit. What are the major changes? The major changes are I rearranged the belt filtering here so that we can actually pull a full belt's worth off into the boxes here. And so that is good stuff. Wow, we ended up with a lot of extra copper in here. So we did that. Then the other thing that I did was I was noticing that once some of this stuff starts filling in, various other assembly machines started stealing the limited set of stuff we were producing before we could fully finish constructing this area. And in particular, that was that meant that we actually didn't finish filling in the yellow inserters for a long time because the inserters are back here in the build, and things like pipes and sticks were stealing iron here. And so I have rearranged things. And so for things that I put some controls on this belt here. Actually, I'll talk about that in a minute. But I made a separate output just for yellow inserters. This active provider chest used to be here to feed into the red inserters, but this way allows us to know and look and see, are the construction bots still pulling yellow inserters for us? And so then, for example, we don't start trying to build red inserters until all the yellow inserters are in. And so in particular, that means that like all of the smelting should be working at that point. So this is really the highest priority item. Then again, for the blue inserters, this one, outputs of the yellows into blues, we wait until we've built up enough red inserters, because the red inserters are still, the second most commonly used thing. And then we start building blue inserters. We don't start building stack inserters until we have built up a backlog of assembly machine ones. And similarly, we don't start feeding assembly machine ones to assembly machine twos until the construction bots are done with the assembly machine ones. So the assembly machine ones are then the last thing there. So we build the main things that are missing are yellow inserters, red inserters, blue inserters, and assembly machine ones. And so we basically build them in that order. And then I've controlled a couple of the belts up here to just look for, hey, we've actually finished making all the assembly machine ones, and hence the rest of everything else. And then at this point, we can just let the rest of the belts go through. And that just helps, for example, because the gear assembler up here grabs most of the iron until the gears back up. And so turning these off means that the gears stack up earlier, as opposed to having to fill this entire section of belt as well. Same controls up here for these belts. I did something similar here to prevent iron from going into steel until we're finished construction. And then the last thing I did up here was I added a combinator to basically just say, don't start requesting red inserters up here until there's actually a backlog produced back over here. And that in fact does work. So that actually helps prioritize finishing construction first, and then after that, then it's the regular sort of fill up the builder train, which we can see we managed to do. What else? The other thing I can say is that the new train logic that we set up has been working very well, and in fact, since the next couple that I have built have not encountered the Thundering Herd problem. And in fact, I went back around and did the same thing to all of the cells. Now are using the same style of use the demand to set the limits, and being and just the enable disable just once the cell becomes active. So we really keep the stations off until we're done constructing, then we turn them on, and then after that we just manipulate limits. And this has been running well without any stuck trains. So that's good. Actually, I should double check this, because water tends to get stuck a lot. but it is not. And I've noticed copper getting stuck a lot, and there are no destination fulls here. Okay, so that is good stuff. All right, so we now have cheaper solar cells, and I'm pretty happy about how they turned out. All right, next, what is going to be next? I mean, this is going to be the end of this episode, but what is going to be next? I think one of the things that's going to be next is addressing the last place we're really dependent on the original base, and that is for biter defense. So we're dependent on that base in sort of two ways. One is that this wall of lasers, our chain link fence here, it draws its power from the nuclear plant in the original base. So I think, that was fine to give us some space to build, but we're starting to run into the borders here. I'm running out of space to build, so we're going to have to bust out beyond. If we look at the electric grid, I had to do a little careful work down around here to make sure that we were still air-gapped from the original. So we are still power independent, which is good stuff. And now we have a cheaper way to expand power, so that is good stuff. And so obviously we're powering the direct laser wall there, but the other place that we are dependent on it is, let's see, we want the enemy expansion candidate chunks. Here's what we want. So taking a look, when the enemy tries to expand, it's going to try to expand into one of these green areas. And we can see the vast majority of these areas are all up here around the original base. And that's because the base up here has artillery that's sort of pushing them back, and so there's lots of room for them to expand. So most of the expansions are actually being handled by the defenses of the original base. And so we are going to have to become self-sufficient in terms of defense next. And so that's what we'll be working on next. So that's what we have for today. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, bye.